The hospital room went quiet, so quiet that Grace could hear her own breath shaking. 15 doctors stood around her bed in neat coats, their faces stiff and pale. Some held clipboards. One held an ultrasound paper with trembling hands. Another doctor's stethoscope hung from his neck, like he had forgotten it was even there. And then Dr. Smith, one of the most famous gynecologists in Lagos, whispered the words that made the air feel heavy. This is not possible." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "What do you mean it's not possible?" she asked, her voice small. Her billionaire husband, Roland Maxwell, stepped forward, his expensive wristwatch shining under the bright lights. He had flown these doctors in from different countries. He had paid for everything: tests, scans, treatments, special drugs, surgeries, and prayer programs. He had done it all for one dream: a baby. Now Dr. Smith stared at the paper like it was a lie. Roland grabbed the paper from his hand. His eyes scanned it once, twice. Then his knees almost gave way. Grace was pregnant. For a second, the room should have exploded with joy. This was the miracle they had begged for. But instead, the doctors looked afraid. Because they remembered what Grace looked like just months before: weak, sad, and empty. Every test had said the same thing: no pregnancy, no sign of pregnancy, no hope. And then Dr. Smith asked a question that made Roland's heart drop. "Mrs. Maxwell," he said slowly, "what exactly did you take?" Grace swallowed. Her lips trembled. She could not lie. "She gave me herbs," Grace whispered. "A homeless widow gave me herbs." The doctors exchanged sharp looks. Roland's chest tightened. "Homeless widow," he repeated. Grace nodded. "Her name is Dorcas." The room seemed to tilt. Dorcas. That name hit Roland like a slap because he remembered her face: thin, dusty, tired eyes, yet calm like someone who had already survived the worst. He remembered where he had found her: on the street. And Roland remembered something else too, something that made his skin turn cold. Before Grace started those herbs, a nurse had warned him quietly, "Sir, people say that woman is a witch." Roland looked at Grace's belly again. His hand shook. If Dorcas truly helped them, then she was a gift. But if the rumors were true, then what kind of help had Grace received? Dr. Smith stepped closer, his voice lower. "Mr. Maxwell," he said, "we need to know where this woman is. Immediately." Roland opened his mouth to answer, when the hospital door suddenly flew open. A police officer walked in. Behind him was a woman with messy hair, a rough wrapper tied around her waist, and eyes that looked tired of being insulted. Dorcas. She stood there like she did not fear anyone. Then she looked straight at Roland and Grace and said calmly, "Your baby is growing, but not everyone in this room wants it to live." Grace gasped, Roland froze, and Dr. Smith's clipboard fell to the floor with a loud clack. Dorcas took one step forward. "Someone here," she said, pointing slowly, "has been lying to you." The police officer lifted his hand. "Madam Dorcas, you have been accused of practicing harmful medicine," he announced. "You will come with us." Dorcas did not fight. She did not beg. She just turned her eyes to Grace and said something that made Grace burst into tears. "Grace, listen to me. If you leave me in their hands, you may never carry this child to full time." Roland's head spun. "What are you saying?" he demanded. "Who is trying to harm our baby?" Dorcas's gaze swept across the doctors, across the nurses, and then stopped on one person: Dr. Smith. His eyes widened for just a second, just enough for Roland to notice. Dorcas said, "That man knows the truth." Dr. Smith's face tightened. "This is nonsense," he snapped. "Officer, remove her now." Grace grabbed Roland's arm with fear. "Roland," she whispered, "please, don't let them take her." Roland looked at Dorcas, then at Dr. Smith, then at the police. His mind screamed with questions. Why was Dorcas here now? Who called the police? And why did Dr. Smith look like a man caught in a trap? Roland stepped forward and raised his voice. "Nobody is taking her anywhere until I understand what is happening." The police officer frowned. "Sir, with respect, this case has orders." "Orders from who?" Roland barked. The officer hesitated, and in that hesitation, Dorcas leaned close to Grace and whispered, so softly only Grace could hear, "Tell your husband the truth about the day you started bleeding." Grace's eyes widened. Roland's face darkened. "Bleeding?" he repeated sharply. "Grace, what does she mean?" Grace's mouth opened, but no sound came out, because the truth was terrifying. 2 weeks after she started Dorcas's treatment, Grace had woken up with blood on her bedsheet. She had panicked. Roland had rushed her to a private clinic, and the clinic had told them something strange. "Madam, this is not a miscarriage. This is something else." But before they could explain more, Dr. Smith had arrived too fast, too early, like he was already waiting. And he had said, "It is nothing. Stress can cause this. Go home." Roland remembered now. He remembered how quickly Dr. Smith controlled the situation, how he told them not to worry, how he refused to let them do certain tests. Roland's chest tightened. He looked at Dr. Smith again, slowly. "Doctor," Roland said in a dangerously calm voice, "why didn't you tell me about this bleeding?" Dr. Smith's jaw clenched. "Because it was not important." Dorcas lifted her head. "Liar," she said quietly. The room burst into shouting. The officer reached for Dorcas's arm. Grace screamed, "Stop! Don't touch her!" Roland moved like lightning and grabbed the officer's wrist. "If you touch her again," he said, his voice shaking with anger, "you will lose your job tonight." The officer pulled back, startled. Dorcas stood still, eyes steady. Then she said the sentence that split the room in two. "Roland Maxwell, your wife is pregnant. But someone has been paid to make sure she never becomes a mother." Roland's heart stopped. Paid. He turned to Dr. Smith with fire in his eyes, and right then, right in front of everyone, Dr. Smith's phone rang. The name on the screen flashed clearly because his hand shook too much to hide it. "Auntie Bessie." Dr. Smith looked at the screen, then looked up at Roland. And in that moment, Roland finally understood. This was bigger than medicine. This was war. And before Roland could speak, Dorcas said softly, "Answer it, doctor. Let your sponsor speak." Dr. Smith's face went white. The room held its breath, and Roland stepped forward and said, "Put it on speaker." Dr. Smith's fingers trembled as he lifted the phone, and the call connected. "Doctor," a woman's voice said sharply through the speaker, "is the baby gone yet?" Grace screamed. Roland's blood turned to ice, and Dorcas whispered, almost sadly, "I told you." The voice from the phone stayed in the air like poison. "Doctor, is the baby gone yet?" Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Juliet's scream echoed through the hospital room as her hands flew to her stomach. Her knees shook, and Roland caught her just in time. "Juliet," he whispered urgently, "look at me. Breathe." The police officer stared at Dr. Smith in shock. "Doctor, who is that woman?" Dr. Smith's lips parted, but no sound came out. Dorcas closed her eyes slowly, like someone who had already seen this ending before. "Now you hear it," she said softly. "Now you know I did not lie." Roland's hands trembled as he gently lowered Juliet onto the bed. Then he turned back to Dr. Smith. His voice was calm. Too calm. "Dr. Smith," Roland said, "you will explain everything. Now." Dr. Smith swallowed hard. His eyes darted to the police officer, then to the nurses, then back to Roland. That woman on the phone," he stammered. She is Juliet's aunt." Juliet's eyes snapped open. "What?" she cried. "Auntie Bessie." Dorcas opened her eyes sharply. Juliet's aunt. The same woman who had never liked her, the same woman who once said, "A woman who cannot give birth is not a real wife." Roland's chest tightened. "So my wife's own family paid you to harm our child?" he asked quietly. Dr. Smith shook his head fast. "No, not like that. She only asked me to delay things, to make sure Juliet did not get pregnant too soon." Juliet sat up despite Roland's grip. "Too soon?" she shouted. "We have waited for years." Dr. Smith wiped sweat from his forehead. "She said if you had a child, Roland would stop supporting the rest of the family. She said your inheritance would change." The room buzzed with shock. Dorcas spoke gently, but every word landed like a stone. "So you gave her drugs that blocked her womb?" Dr. Smith's shoulders dropped. Roland felt rage rush through him so fast it scared him. "You used my wife," he growled. "You played with her body. You nearly killed our child." The police officer straightened. "Dr. Smith, you are under arrest for medical misconduct and conspiracy." As the officer moved forward, Dr. Smith fell to his knees. "I'm sorry," he cried. "I didn't know she would get help elsewhere. I didn't know Dorcas would interfere." Everyone froze. Dorcas's eyes lifted slowly. "So now you admit it," she said. "You tried to stop life, and you failed." Juliet stared at Dorcas through tears. "You saved my baby," she whispered. Dorcas said nothing. The officer handcuffed Dr. Smith and led him away, his cries echoing down the hall. But even as justice seemed to rise, Dorcas did not smile. She looked worried. Roland noticed. "What is it?" he asked. Dorcas took a deep breath. "The danger is not over." Juliet's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" Dorcas leaned closer. "Dr. Smith was only the hand. The mind behind this is still free." Roland stiffened. "Auntie Bessie," Dorcas nodded. "She will not stop." That same evening, Roland moved Juliet to a private wing of the hospital. Armed guards stood outside. The best nurses watched her every move. Still, Juliet could not sleep. She kept seeing blood. She kept hearing her aunt's voice. Dorcas sat quietly by the window, counting Juliet's breathing, watching her eyes, feeling the air. Roland finally spoke. "Dorcas, why did you help us?" Dorcas turned slowly. "Because I know what it means to lose everything," she said. Her voice drifted back in time. "I was not always homeless," Dorcas continued. "I had a husband, a small house. Respect." Juliet listened with wide eyes. "My husband fell sick," Dorcas said. "I used herbs to ease his pain, but the illness was stronger. He died." Her voice cracked slightly. "His family said I killed him. They said I used witchcraft. They seized his land. They threw me out." Roland clenched his fists. "I healed people," Dorcas said, "but when trouble came, they forgot." Juliet reached for her hand. "I'm sorry," Dorcas nodded. "Pain teaches patience." The door suddenly opened. A nurse rushed in, pale-faced. "Sir," she said to Roland. "Madam Maxwell's blood pressure is rising." Juliet gasped as pain shot through her lower belly. Dorcas was on her feet instantly. "Clear the room," she ordered. The nurse hesitated. "We need a doctor." Dorcas met her eyes. "You already have one." Roland looked torn. "Dorcas." "Trust me," Dorcas said firmly. She placed her palm gently on Juliet's stomach and closed her eyes. "Breathe slowly," she whispered. Juliet obeyed. Minutes passed. Juliet's breathing steadied. The pain eased. The machine beeped softly. The nurse stared at the monitor in disbelief. "It's stabilizing." Roland's heart pounded. Dorcas stepped back, weak but calm. But before anyone could speak, a loud scream echoed from outside the room. A guard shouted, "Stop her!" Footsteps thundered. The door burst open. A woman stormed in, eyes wild, wrapper loose, anger burning on her face. "Auntie Bissy," she pointed straight at Dorcas. "That woman is a witch," she screamed. "She wants to steal my niece's child." Juliet shook her head weakly. "Auntie, please." Bissy ignored her. She turned to the guards. "Arrest her. She is dangerous." Roland stepped forward, his voice cold. "You will not touch her." Bissy laughed bitterly. "You think she saved your wife? She will destroy everything you own." Dorcas looked at Bissy calmly. "You fear what you cannot control." Bissy lunged forward, and suddenly Juliet screamed again. This time it was worse. The machines began to beep faster. Dorcas spun toward Juliet. Her face changed. Something was wrong, very wrong. She whispered urgently, "Roland, someone has poisoned her." Roland's world shattered. Bissy froze. Juliet cried out in pain, and Dorcas turned slowly, eyes blazing, and said, "The poison was not taken today." Dorcas's words dropped into the room like a stone sinking into water. Roland felt his heart slam hard against his chest. "What do you mean, not today?" he asked, his voice tight. "Juliet hasn't eaten anything strange." Juliet cried out again, clutching her stomach as sharp pain spread through her body. The machine beside her bed beeped faster, louder, as if it was also afraid. Dorcas moved quickly. She placed 2 fingers on Juliet's wrist, then leaned close to her belly, listening, not with tools, but with deep focus. "This poison is slow," Dorcas said. "It was meant to hide, to wait until the baby was strong, then strike." Juliet's eyes filled with fear. Am I losing my baby?" Roland grabbed her hand. No, you are not," he said, though his voice shook. Auntie Bissy stepped back slowly, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to speak, but did not know what to say. Roland turned to her sharply. "Don't move." Bissy raised her hands. "Roland, please, you are letting this woman confuse you." Dorcas did not look at Bissy. Her eyes were fixed on Juliet. "The poison entered her body weeks ago," Dorcas continued. "Small doses, hidden in medicine." Roland's head snapped up. "Medicine?" Dorcas nodded. "Hospital medicine." All eyes turned to the tray near Juliet's bed, tablets, syrups, injections. The nurse's face drained of color. "Sir, all these were approved by Dr. Smith." Roland's jaw tightened so hard it hurt. Dr. Smith, even after his arrest, his shadow was still here. Dorcas spoke fast now. "We must act quickly. The poison is waking because the baby is growing." Juliet whimpered. "Please, help me." Dorcas held Juliet's face gently. "I will. But you must be strong." She turned to Roland. "I need privacy, and hot water, clean bowls, and guards at the door." Roland did not hesitate. "Do everything she says," he ordered. The guards pushed everyone out. Nurses, even Auntie Bessie, who screamed and cursed as she was dragged away. The door shut. Silence fell. Dorcas tied her wrapper tighter and rolled up her sleeves. Her hands moved with calm purpose. From a small worn bag she always carried, she brought out dried leaves, roots, and powders, wrapped carefully in cloth. Juliet watched with fear and hope mixed together. Dorcas, will this hurt my baby? Dorcas shook her head. No, it will protect your baby. But your body will fight. She poured hot water into a bowl and mixed the herbs slowly, whispering instructions as she worked. Not prayers, not chants, but careful steps passed down through generations. Roland watched, torn between fear and faith. Minutes passed. Dorcas handed Juliet a small cup. Drink slowly. Juliet's hand shook as she drank. The taste was bitter. She gagged but forced it down. Almost immediately, sweat broke out on her forehead. Then she screamed. Roland rushed to her side. Juliet! Dorcas held up a hand. Let her be. This is the poison leaving. Juliet cried out again as her body shook. Tears streamed down her face. Her stomach tightened. Then suddenly she vomited. Dark, thick liquid spilled into the bowl Dorcas held. Roland stared in horror. Dorcas looked relieved. There, she said softly. That is part of it. The machine slowed. Juliet's breathing eased slightly, but Dorcas did not relax. This is not finished, she said. The poison was planted carefully. Someone wanted this baby gone without leaving a trace. Roland's voice broke. Who would do this to her? Dorcas looked him straight in the eye. Someone who benefits if she remains childless. Roland thought of inheritance papers, of family meetings, of Auntie Bessie's sharp tongue. Outside, shouting broke out. Roland rushed to the door and opened it a crack. Auntie Bessie was arguing with the police. You cannot keep me here. I am family. Roland stepped out fully now, his face hard. You are not family, he said coldly. Not anymore. Bessie froze. You paid Dr. Smith, Roland continued. You poisoned my wife. You tried to kill my child. Bessie laughed suddenly, a wild sound. Kill? I was protecting what belongs to us. Once that baby comes, everything changes. Roland's fists clenched. Take her away. The police moved in. Bessie screamed as they dragged her off. That woman will destroy you. She is not normal. Roland did not look back. He returned to Juliet's room. Juliet lay weak but calmer now. Dorcas wiped her face gently. You are safe for now, Dorcas said, but the baby is still fragile. Juliet whispered, Thank you. Dorcas nodded. Rest. Hours passed. Night fell. Roland sat by Juliet's bed, watching her breathe, afraid to sleep. Dorcas sat in a corner, silent, alert. Suddenly Juliet stirred. She gasped. My stomach. It's burning again. Dorcas was on her feet instantly. She touched Juliet's belly, and her face changed. This is not poison, she said sharply. Roland stood. Then what is it? Dorcas looked toward the window. Fear. The lights flickered. Roland frowned. What? Dorcas moved closer to Juliet's head. Your body remembers pain, and fear can harm a baby as much as poison. Juliet's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared, Dorcas. Dorcas held her hand firmly. Listen to me. Your baby wants to live. The machine beeped steadily again. Then, knock, knock. A guard opened the door slightly. Sir, there's a visitor. Roland frowned. At this hour? The guard hesitated. She says you sent for her. Roland shook his head. I didn't. Dorcas's eyes narrowed. Describe her. The guard swallowed. Older woman, neatly dressed, smiling. Dorcas stiffened. "That is not a visitor," she said quietly. Roland felt a chill. "Then who is she?" Dorcas answered slowly, each word heavy with warning. "The one who first taught Dr. Smith how to hide poison in healing." Juliet gasped. Roland's blood ran cold. The guard looked confused. "Sir, should I let her in?" Dorcas turned to Roland, her voice urgent. "If she enters this room tonight," Dorcas said, "your wife may not see morning." Roland's heart pounded as he ran toward the door. "Stop her!" he shouted. But from the hallway, a calm female voice floated in, smooth and confident. "Roland Maxwell, it is too late." The calm voice in the hallway stopped everyone cold. Roland moved fast. "No one enters!" he shouted. The guards blocked the corridor as the woman tried to step forward. Police arrived within minutes. When they searched her bag, they found sealed vials and hidden pills, slow poison, carefully measured. The truth finally stood in the open. She was arrested on the spot. That night, Juliet slept peacefully for the first time in months. Dorcas stayed awake, watching, guiding, checking every breath, every sign. No machines failed. No alarms screamed. The baby held on. Weeks passed. Juliet grew stronger. Her belly grew round and firm with life. Doctors from different hospitals came again, but this time they came with humility. Dr. Smith's license was taken. His crimes were made public. The story spread across Nigeria. A baby saved after 15 gynecologists failed. And every report mentioned one name: Dorcas. On a quiet morning, Juliet went into labor. Roland held her hand, fear and joy fighting in his chest. Dorcas stood beside the doctors, steady and calm. "Breathe," Dorcas said softly. "Your child is ready." Hours later, a baby's cry filled the room, strong, clear, alive. Roland dropped to his knees and wept. Juliet held her child and whispered, "We waited for you." Outside the hospital, cameras flashed. Reporters asked questions. Roland raised his hand and spoke clearly. "This woman," he said, placing his arm around Dorcas, "was called a witch. She was chased from her home and left on the streets. Today, she is the reason my child lives." He cleared Dorcas's name publicly. The false accusations were crushed by truth. Her husband's seized property was returned. A home was built for her, warm, safe and full of dignity. But Dorcas did not ask for wealth. She chose something greater. She became a guide to the child, not a servant, not a shadow, but family, a respected voice, a steady presence. One evening, as Dorcas held the baby and hummed softly, Juliet watched her with tears in her eyes. "They tried to erase you," Juliet said. Dorcas smiled gently. "Wisdom survives rejection." Roland looked at his child, then at Dorcas. 15 gynecologists could not save our baby, he said, but rejected hands did. And in that quiet room, with the child breathing peacefully between them, they understood the lesson that would follow their family forever. Miracles do not always come from power or titles. Sometimes they come from the hands the world pushed away. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? Do well to let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories. Stay blessed.